Welcome to Breaking Biscuits, the experience. And Mark, today we are going to be talking about the innocent victim. You do not want to miss this one.
You do not.
Hi, Mark. Welcome back to Breaking Biscuits, the experience. And this topic that we're going to talk about, we named it the innocent victim, but this topic we're going to talk about, I think, is near to our hearts, just because we've talked to so many people. We know so many people that kind of fall into this category, and it sounds a little like a oxymorons. Like, how can you be innocent? How can you be a victim at the same time? So we'll kind of dive into that, but just to kind of get everybody an idea of what we are talking about, I want to just kind of give it our definition of what this means to us. It's the innocent victim is the person, first and foremost, was generally harmed early in life.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't exclude very many people, and that could be emotionally, psychologically, physically, all the above at the same time. And they just never learned how to process it. And as adults, maybe they're not in that danger that they were in early in life, but the identity of being wronged or hurt becomes a place that this is key, that they unconsciously live. So what started out as like a survival mode as a child has turned into a prison. And, we would call that being stuck, but it's so much more than that. And another way to say this, Mark, is you're like, to the people that have been hurt, you're not responsible for what happened to you, but you are responsible for what happens next. So, so we want to start out by, and I think it'd be a good place for you to jump in. Like, you're coaching so many people right now. Like, when we say a past hurt, kind of sounds superficial, but that's not what we're talking about. People aren't carrying superficial hurts. They're carrying something much deeper.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe it?
Well, I think we should go ahead and elevate that to trauma. It's a traumatic experience. A lot of the people that we coach and talk to, so far about 85%, if not more, have a traumatic experience as a child, meaning child to like teens, somewhere in there. And they have a traumatic experience with a loved one in the home or outside the home. And I always tell them, like the topic that we're talking about, like, you are innocent. You are innocent. You were innocent when this traumatic experience happened, and your innocence got lost. You something stole. Now you had to go into survival mode. You had to go into honestly, I think people miss their childhood because they had to survive. I know it sounds really like real counseling or whatever, but it's just the truth. When a young man sits and tells me, my father told me that the relationship between him and his mother was his fault and he was 11 years old, that's a lot. But then the father kills himself, like, that's, I don't know. I just sat with him and just wanted to feel what he felt about that. And he was all the way back at 11 years old because his innocence got stolen.
Right. But the people that's carrying this trauma and carrying these hurts and this pain from their childhood, they're unconsciously living that out in their adult life. And my heart breaks for them because they don't know that it's connected.
Right.
And if they do know, they don't know how to disconnect it.
Right.
And
And
so
it kind of becomes like the current, an undercurrent of their life, don't it?
yeah, exactly.
And they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, and in the counseling world, they call it triggers. So every trigger that happens in life feels like the undercurrent is pulling them under,
Mm-hmm.
and they're literally not going to survive. And that circumstance, whatever it is that trigger is, it's they're reliving the trauma, they're reliving all the pain, all the abuse, if it's abuse, whatever it is, they're reliving that in those moments in their adult life. And it's just sad because there's hope for them, and
Mm-hmm.
there's hope out of it. But if you're unconscious to it, if you're dead to it, and it's tough to work your way through it. So what would you say to someone that's been abused or saw things they shouldn't have seen, or been told things they shouldn't have been told as a kid? How do you convince them they're not responsible for what happened to them? Because as kids, we take it on and we say, yeah, it is my fault.
Oh yeah. I bet there's a huge majority, and I don't want to speak to people out there today that are going to be listening. If your parents divorced, there's a part of you that felt like it's your fault, whether anybody said anything or not.
Yeah.
And that's a traumatic experience. That's taken on something that's not true. But most parents weren't trained that way, so they can't help the child disconnect from it because they're trying to figure out their life. But the child secretly learns that it was my fault. And it usually it goes one way or the other. It's always like, you're going to live your life, bless God, and prove everybody wrong. And I'm going to be a hero and a champion. I'm going to do whatever, blah, blah. Or you're going to be that's one kind of victim. Or you're going to be the victim that just can't get it right.
Yeah.
Because I see the guy that overcompensates for everything in their life. I got to be successful. I got to be this or got to be that. So in my coaching, I will ask them, what are you afraid of? And you know what they always tell me? The same thing. I'm afraid of failure.
Yeah.
And I go, why? Let's talk about that. And it goes back to, because what my dad said, I want to prove him wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. It turned out good, but they're not even enjoying their life. They're like running themselves in the ground to try to prove something to somebody that it doesn't even matter anymore. It's astounding. So you asked me how do I dive into this? I just figure out, well, what are you doing? And you just say, well, how's that working for you?
Yeah.
And then I ask them, then we dive into this thing, and I ask them what happened, and then they pretty much already know. And then I try to convey to them what you just said. Well, you were innocent. You were innocent. And I think that's how you start to reclaim. Because when something happens when you're young, you automatically take on that identity. Like, I deserved it. So, like, what are the things people say? I deserve it. Something wrong with me. Isn't that right? Or something like that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I shouldn't feel this way is a good one.
Yeah.
If I was stronger, here's a good one. If I was stronger, I could stop blowing my life up. Or yeah, it's self-blame is what it ends up being. So that's why I'm really excited about this podcast, because it's a dichotomy between being victimized, but yet blaming yourself, and the self-blame story keeps talking to you that and you don't even realize it's connected. You're saying there's something wrong with me because someone else did something wrong to me, and
So you're
that's
saying I was victimized, but I also became a victim.
yeah, it's hard to talk about, because when you say to someone they've become a victim, it's like something's wrong with their thinking, and that well, I guess what we're saying is, yeah, you're thinking, you've taken on the victim identity.
Yeah,
I think that's a better way to frame it.
that's
We're
better.
not saying they're a victim, because they've been victimized,
Mm-hmm.
but they've taken on the victim identity, and that identity is what is the reason they're stuck, and they feel like they're in prison, and they just can't break out of the place that they're in, because their identity is wrapped around what has happened to them, which is understandable. Like, I totally understand, get it, have great compassion for
Mm-hmm.
that. But unfortunately, until they break out, um, they're still stuck.
Not only understandable, but I think what you're saying is it's justifiable.
Yeah.
Like, this happened to me. Yeah, it's the part of our world that I really don't like. People aren't allowed to. They get traumatized before they even have a chance to figure out who they are. And then the trauma starts speaking a script to them that tells them who they're not, and they believe it.
Yeah. It is tragic. And I think what we're trying to say today is, when you're victimized, that's an event that took place at a previous time.
Mm-hmm.
When you're the victim, or you have the victim identity, that's that's a story you're telling yourself over and over and over. And to your point earlier, it's not usually I'm enough, or I can do anything, or I'm lovable. The story is the opposite. The victim mindset, the victim identity says, I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. I'll never be good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody will ever want me. No one will ever love me.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mark, this is interesting too. If you have that victim mindset, if you're thinking those things about yourself, you have a high risk of self-sabotaging your own self, right? And then when something goes wrong or awry, or something's bad in your relationship, what's the first thing you do? Oh, it's my fault.
Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. It always happens.
Always happens. Been happening ever since I was a child.
Everybody leaves.
And it's true. It's why it's so hard, because it's true. But at the same time, they're stuck.
But it doesn't have to be true about you. But you don't know the difference. There was an old saying, you don't know you're in prison until you look out the window and see a free man.
Yeah.
If you were born in prison, raised in prison, that was your way of life, that's how it worked, you wouldn't even know the difference till you saw a free man.
Well, think of the men that we've talked to that have said, I just thought this was normal when I grew up. I thought it was normal to be treated horribly by your father. I thought it was normal for your father to say horrible things to your face, or to beat on you, or whatever it is. So yeah, I agree. That's what their normal is.
But isn't there normal? I think if stuff happens like that, the young person will find a way to cope and survive. And so they will tell themselves, that's just how my dad is. But he really loves me. Like, it gets all distorted. And so let's say if you have an angry father, right? And no matter what you do, you don't do it right. You're always in trouble. He's always upset with you or whatever. And I think you've alluded to this in the past, like the only time you get the praise is when you do the things that that he deems as important or whatever. And I think as a young person, the only way to cope is to say, well, that's what love is.
Yeah, when you were talking, it reminded me of foster care. And I have a friend of mine that him and his wife, they wanted to give back, and so they decided to be foster parents because they wanted to make a difference in somebody's life.
Uh-huh.
And so they started getting these, and they were selective in who they would take, but they started getting these people, these young, kind of like young teenage girls, 13 to 18, somewhere in that range. And I was fascinated when I heard some of these stories, because no matter what the environment was that the child was raised in, it could be abusive, neglect, typically all those things, or they wouldn't be in foster care. Those kids would do anything to get out of foster care and go back home to mom, knowing it's going to be horrible.
Chaos.
But to them, chaos, to them, it's normal. And what was abnormal was a home of peace, love, caring. It just amazes me. I think it's spot on what you said. It's the place that they feel love.
They equate it. Like they equate it. So when they experience real love, they don't trust it. Like, what do you want from me? Why are you saying this?
Well, do you think that's why the victim identity stays stuck? Is that what you're saying? Is it's just familiar? The chaos is
Always
familiar.
easier, isn't it? To go
Yeah,
back to what you're familiar with.
yeah,
This is a really deep subject, and the reason why is because a lot of people deal with this and they have no earthly idea what's happening, why they
right.
deal with it, and that's why we
So,
want to do the broadcast. And if it rings a bell with you, make a comment, let us know. Um, you know, post and subscribe and share this, because obviously none of us came from a perfect family. I always say this when I'm coaching people. I go, well, you're in this situation because this happened to you, right? And like, yeah. And I go, I'll give you $1,000, but I'll bet you your father's father did the same thing to them, raised them
yeah,
exactly the same way.
yeah.
And it has never failed. It just never failed.
Well, it came from somewhere, right?
Yeah,
The
because
original.
trauma not transformed will always be transferred.
Yeah,
And it kind of makes sense though, like that scripture says, train up a child in the way he should go. When he's old, he won't depart. So no matter how chaotic he gets, if you raise him right and if you model to him, he'll come back to it eventually. I think that's what that's really saying. Because
right.
you always live out what either happened to you or what was modeled to you. It's just really sad, Toby, really. I see guys trying to kill themselves to be successful and they don't even know why.
Yeah,
They're telling that little boy in themselves, you know what? I don't care what my dad says. I'm gonna prove him wrong. They spend their whole life like,
right.
you already
Well,
successful. You survived.
yeah, you survived that, but they do it without peace. I mean, the outside might look successful, but the inside is chaos. Usually, relationships suffer. That's where the fault line is. You might fake everybody out there in the world from a business perspective or whatever, But typically, if things are wrong on the inside, the fault line is always the relationship exposes the fault lines. So if you have that victim identity, it's going to show up quick in a relationship.
So how would you coach someone that, I'm interested in this, and as we go along, we'll do a live someday where people can chime in, but so something happened, right? And people are incredibly justified in saying, this is what happened to me. But how do you coach them out of becoming what happened to them?
Mark, I don't think there's an easy answer, but I think the very first step is that awareness that there's a difference between being victimized and having a victim identity. So what you're coaching them out of is the old identity.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to put down those words they're saying about themselves that are coming from that event. Because, okay, let me ask you, do you think shame wiggles its way into this somehow?
Oh, 100%. Isn't it ironic though? Like something tragic happens to us in our innocence, and now we carry the shame of it. Like, it makes no sense. It's like, and shame is, if you knew what happened to me, you would reject me.
Yeah.
Well, it happened to you. Why would we not share it? But we don't live in that world. And I was telling a friend of mine this weekend, shame is always revealed in the person that blames. Because the person that blames everything on somebody else, some situation, some whatever, they're literally in shame. And that's how you know you're in shame, because you blame everybody, and it's usually for the choices you made, which is the whole thing's a mess. But it's easier to see now, when you make it through a little bit of the level. Like, I haven't arrived, there's no destination, but my eyes are open to when people start blaming everybody for their situation in life. Nope. It doesn't even matter how traumatic your past was. At some point, you have to say, that happened, but it's not who I am. And I'm not going to blame everybody for where I am anymore. That's
right.
tough.
Oh, yeah, it's hard. I mean, you're asking people to look at themselves in a different way.
Yeah, that's tough.
That is so hard. So you have some great insight on that subject of how do you begin the journey of seeing yourself differently?
Well, I don't think we're not asking people to say, yeah, that happened to me, I don't care anymore. We're not saying that.
Oh, not at all.
We're saying we validate what you went through. We've been through some similar things, probably not as tragic as you. But we felt like there was a life better than this, and this wasn't it. And we're willing to let that go for a chance of a better life. But it speaks to me in a real deep way, because anybody can become a victim. If you've been abused, neglected, talked about, mistreated, no matter, you don't have to be a child, you can be an adult, no matter what your people group is or whatever, I learned firsthand that you could become a victim. And the only way I recognize it is that I blame people for where I was.
Yeah.
So if I didn't have resources and things weren't working out for me, I blamed the situation that caused me pain, because it made me felt I had to have a place to displace my blame. And that is the hardest. I think that's probably the hardest thing to overcome. Where do I place blame? Stuff happened to me, but who can I blame? That's a hard question. Who can I blame? But if you blame, you're going to be stuck in shame, and you're going to slowly become a victim. And a victim to me is someone that always needs to be rescued.
But I want to repeat this back to see if I'm catching what you're saying. So when you say blame, it's okay to say, yeah, I was victimized by my father.
Mm-hmm.
I hold them responsible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame my father for where I'm at as a 33-year-old man.
Mm-hmm.
That's my responsibility. I've got to figure out what I need to do. Although what was done was horrific, what was spoken over me was a death sentence in some cases. I'm going to choose not to create my identity around those events or those words that were spoken to me. I'm going to choose a different path and a different identity. I'm not going to blame him for where I'm at today.
That's pretty convenient, isn't it? To blame everybody where you're at.
Well, I think you have to reframe. I hope no one will know. I don't think anybody will know the individual, but someone said to us recently, and I'm just going to be very blunt. My father told me I would never be anything, that I was just a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And you almost have to reframe the wording and look at it from the standpoint of, like you said, probably went through the same thing when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You reframe that and you say, well, actually, what my father said was, I'm really frustrated and disappointed in my own life, and I feel like a piece of shit, so I'm calling you that.
Mm-hmm.
You pick up the rest of the story and you say, but I'm not going to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do that to my children, to my grandchildren.
You're right.
You,
You had to reframe it. It
yeah,
took me 11 months of therapy to find out this, and I'll give it to everybody for free. You can send us offerings if you want to. But I had to do therapy for 11 months, and my mom has been married 13 times. So it was nothing but chaos, and when things were going good in her life, she would sabotage it. She just could not handle success. And I was doing my sessions, and I was working through it and trying to, like, I literally don't have any good memories of me and my mom, like fun memories. And that was a real task to try to remember them. And it led to abandonment, it led to a lot of things. But my point is, I had to come to the place in my life where I had to have compassion on her and say, she did the best she could with what she had, with what was given to her. And when I started believing that and perceiving that and speaking that over my life, it softened my heart, and it freed me from what she did to me, because I had to accept that, you know what, she did do the best she could, because she was raised a certain way. How could she not do what she did if she was raised a certain way, if you're not aware? And 11 months later, because at first when we started talking with my therapist about it, I'm like, no way, nope, not a chance. But as we just started digging around, and I started looking, like, my mom worked 2 jobs. My mom did all these things, and my mom would buy me gifts because she didn't know how to love me. So she'd just buy me stuff, new shoes, whatever. But all along, she was trying to love me the best way she knew how. And it caused me to not only release her and forgive her, but it caused me to feel sorry for her, that she had been raised that way, and now her own son will have nothing to do with her. So yeah, this stuff can get fixed, but you're gonna have to do the work. You gotta let go. You gotta start seeing the big picture. That's what I did. But I wasn't raped or molested or whatever. I don't know how you deal with all that, but this is what I did. I don't know if that makes sense, but it really, my abandonment thing started dissipating when I started accepting that she could only do how she was raised, how she was trained, what happened to her life.
Did it
And I accepted.
change? Did it change how you looked at yourself?
Yeah, I was no longer a person of abandonment, that I was worthy of love. I was loved. I was loved by my mother and didn't know it my whole life
Mm-hmm.
until I was 50-something years old. And I spent my whole life thinking, all I could focus on was my own victimization. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But through just being honest and conversating, and through therapy and learning to see the big picture of, what my mom did or didn't do or whatever. And I think what we're talking about, Toby, is, let's say, for example, a father may say something that is so catastrophic to their son, right? There's probably a lot of good chances that there was a lot of good times that happened before that.
Right.
And that's what happened in my life. My pain erased all the good times, and all I could do was focus on what I didn't have, how horrible a person she was, and what I missed out on. I mean, it's a real thing. The stuff we talk about is real life. We're not just pulling something out of the hair. This stuff's real, and it helped me. And I want people to somehow, some way. My wife tells me all the time, the greatest revelation she learned, I guess, from us being together is God is in all things. You just got to find him. And that's tough. But that's what I did.
I think we should end on this note here. It just, those that are listening today, and most people have been victimized at some point in their life. And if things aren't going well for you and around you, just come to the place of just acknowledging that what you're doing isn't working.
Yeah.
Be open to looking at it a different way, thinking about it a different way. Reaching out and getting help from someone, but just acknowledge, and this isn't working anymore. Mm-hmm. There could be a connection between what happened to me and what's happening and how my life is today. And if we could just start there, just because most people it's so uncomfortable, just want to ignore it. People hate digging into their past. And understandably why. If you've been victimized, why would you want to go back and live that again? It makes no sense. We're not saying you have to relive the trauma again. I think what we're saying is there's an acknowledgement that the two are connected.
Yeah. And like what you said at the very start, I can't control what happens to me, but I'm responsible for what happens after that point.
Right.
That's what
Right.
you're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think next week we can dive into that a little bit deeper. Like, how do we turn the ship? How do we get from where we've been to where we want to be? And I can't believe we've already been talking for 35 minutes, but
Me neither.
this
This
is just
is real life stuff here. It resonates with me. I deal with it every day, and it's good stuff.
any closing thoughts, Mark?
If you have a heartbeat and you listen to this, and something inside you says, whether you want to believe us or not, but something inside says, man, I think they're saying it. I don't get it. I don't know how. Then you're a candidate. You know,
Yeah.
you're a somebody. You're not alone, and we've been through all that. We've all had great relationships with our families, but then there's these other relationships that we get traumatized by, and I don't even know what to say, Toby. I run into this so much. I was a victim and I made it through, and I learned helplessness and I made it through, and I was abused, neglected, distorted when I was innocent, but I made it through, and I just want to dedicate my life to help people while they're young. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So there's hope for everyone out there if you just have the courage to say, yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
I just want to end with this thought. It just hit me, and that is this: you are not the sum of all the things that happen to you in your life.
Oh.
That is not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And you are loved, and you're thought of, and you're cared for. There's people that love you. That's where it starts. You got to believe that you are not what happened to you, is another way to say it. That is not who you are.
I guess really that's what we've been talking about. You're not what happened to you.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It's called breaking biscuits.
Right. Yeah. It was a fast one. It was a fast biscuit.
Yeah.
But next week, Mark, we'll jump into the next phase of this, and yeah, we'll. I think we should call it the turning point. How do you turn the ship around?
Yes, I'm gonna make a note right now. I already got the best point ever.
Can't wait to hear it.
It's gonna be great.
Well, until next week, Mark, we just want to tell all our audience, we truly, truly appreciate you. We love you. We know there's people that listen to this every week, and we believe in you, and we're here to help you in any way we can.
Yeah. If you need to talk to somebody, bounce something off, just message us. breakingbiscuits.com, Breaking Biscuits Facebook page, Breaking Biscuits YouTube channel. There's a lot of ways to get a hold of us.
Absolutely. All right. Well, until next week, we love you. God bless you. And we'll see you next time.
Yes, sir. See you next time.